I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is one of my infrequent but regular back less things kind of videos. Back less, buy less. It applies to both for some of these and applies to backing specifically for others. But I try to do these videos from time to time, videos where I try to have a conversation around reasons to consider backing fewer things. In fact, over on my Patreon, I have a weekly series that goes up along with To Back or Not to Back, where I try to specifically take a look at all the crowdfunding campaigns and try to give you reasons not to back them, trying to be as aggressive as possible with don't back this, don't back this, don't back that, just to remind you that there's always reasons not to back things, to consistently and frequently remind you that FOMO is out there, every game is tempting, and then of course there's people like myself and every other content creator and every other forum post and blog post and group that you're in, showing you constantly the latest hotness, the newest things that are all look very exciting, and they often are exciting. It doesn't mean you have to get them, and usually there's just as many reasons not to get them as there are reasons to get them, and it's very case by case. Not everything new, shiny, and bright do you have to get, and very often you shouldn't. Games are an amazing hobby. I love the hobby I'm in. I dearly, dearly love this hobby. I love the games I get to play. I love the relationships I build, both the new ones in terms of new relationships I build through games, as well as those that are, the connection is made deeper and just longer lasting through the constant, frequent touch points of sitting down at a table with friends, having a good time, or playing solo for that matter. There's so many aspects and avenues of this hobby that I am very much in love with, and I'm a huge fan of it. And I also think that you can get all of those aspects without backing or buying every single new game. 500 plus games a year come out that are worth paying attention to. Specifically, I use those words, worth paying attention to. I've done a video on this in the past. Again, I've done several videos like this. I just think it's a good reminder to frequently have. But there are 5,000 plus games that come out every single year that make their way into the Board Game Geek database, of which around 500 or so are decent enough that they are worth paying attention to. And I don't know what your collection's like, but I can't get 500 new games a year and keep them in my collection. Besides the cost, the storage space, the mental load, every single aspect of that, it's not sustainable. So start by acknowledging that you can't get everything. You will not get everything. It's simply not sustainable. And there's a degree of appreciating the games you do have in your collection. This is all a large preamble to the fact that this is a list of 5 reasons. Again, I do these videos on it all the time. This is like my 5th or 6th or whatever it is. I do them like twice a year, 3 times a year, just as reminders to counter the fact that there's going to be a constant stream of reviews of the newest content, coverage of the latest Kickstarters. The very nature of being a board game channel means I am showing you the newest, hottest stuff, and I am frequently giving you reasons not to get that stuff, but dedicated videos like this are good to remind yourself of those reasons. And so we'll start off with 5 reasons in this particular video. As I realized that someone just rung the doorbell. Hopefully it's just a package. It was indeed just a package, but one that needed signing for. So, let's go ahead and go into 5 reasons. 5 reasons for this video of reasons not to back games or buy games, but starting with one that is specific to backing, which is understand that when you back something on crowdfunding, whether it's Kickstarter, GameFound, BackKit, wherever it is, if you back something with crowdfunding, understand that the thing you're excited about today, you may not see for years. That's just the nature of what crowdfunding is. And for each of these, I do have examples. I'll wait for several minutes until the video starts showing you games. But in my case, I chose Titans as my example here. Although, I'm still excited for this game, don't get me wrong. You see, this is actually the hardest one for me to find examples for because usually they're not here anymore if I'm no longer excited for them. But Titans is a game that I was very excited about when I backed it, and I still am excited to play it with the caveat that it hasn't actually been played. It showed up, I read the rules, I was going to play it, I didn't, and kind of time has now passed, and now it's sitting here. A game that I backed, was excited for, I'm excited for, and that's going to be true in crowdfunding in general. The things you back today, they're very cool. They're very interesting, but you may not see them for years, and that does shift the what you're currently interested in. Endless Winter is a great example of this too, and make no mistake, I love Endless Winter. It's like my top 30 games of all time, but Endless Winter is one that I was incredibly excited for. And by the time it showed up, I had fallen in love, not just with, Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak, but with the expansions for Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak by the time Endless Winter actually showed up at my door. And so there's that caveat of, yes, you're excited for things, but there will be other things that come along in that time. There'll be other things that capture your attention. Your game group might shift. Your interest in games might shift. Where and how you play games might shift. Understand when you back something, you are excited about it today, but you might not be in a year and a half. Or you might be less excited. It might be less interesting. There are certainly games that have shown up on my doorstep that I'm like, yes, I Was excited about that a year and a half ago, and sometimes I get games that when I show up a year and a half later, they instantly go into my sell pile. It's infrequent, make no mistake. I am fairly selective about the things I back and try to match it to my attention, but there have been times where I back something and a year and a half later it goes straight onto my sell pile as soon as it shows up because either circumstances have changed or my interest level has waned over the past year and a half, or sometimes it's a mess of a show, of a Kickstarter, of a crowdfunding campaign, in the sense that sometimes there's issues, there's increased shipping costs, there's delays, that thing that you backed doesn't show up for 3.5 years. That stuff does happen, and that does mean sometimes, not always, you just find yourself less interested in the thing that once upon a time captured your imagination and attention. Understand that when you back something, you are spending money today for something you will not see for a long time, and your circumstances may change by the time you see it. This is just a much of a reason to pay attention to retail games or whatnot, as opposed to crowdfunding, because those things are available today and your interest level is today. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of perks to crowdfunding, but that's not the point of this video. This video is to remind you of the things and the reasons not to get things as opposed to the reasons to get things. I always try to be so balanced that instinctively I'm always like, but I want to like give the other side, but that's not today's video. The second aspect, and this applies to retail, I think the rest of these apply to retail and crowdfunding. The second one is don't back games that you can't reasonably play. Don't back games that you can't reasonably play. If the game is not tableable in its current circumstance, why are you currently getting it? And for me, this one is very sad because this one I don't know what actually happens with it, but it's Feed the Kraken. Feed the Kraken is going to be my pick for this one because Feed the Kraken is a game that you really want 5+ players, 6+ players ideally, to play and experience this game at its fullest. I don't have that kind of circumstance in my life right now. Ever since COVID happened, my game group shifted in the dynamic and the size of it shrunk so that what used to be between 4 to 7 players on a consistent time, and occasionally you'd have more, infrequently you'd have less, has now shifted that it's far more common for me to have 2 to 4 players, and the idea of me having a player count that accommodates Feed the Kraken is infrequent. This is a great convention game. This is a game I would love to play at conventions as I go to them. I think it would be absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to show up at the next, I don't know, Dice Tower West or Gen Con or whatever convention and find a table to sit there and play Feed the Kraken. But you don't need the game for that. More often than not, there's libraries there, or alternatively, you can find a friend who has it or something like that. Don't back games that you cannot reasonably play. If you don't play solo games, don't get solo games. If you don't have the player count to accommodate this game, to accommodate any game, don't get that game. If you're not going to play an app-based game with your current group because they don't like it, don't buy an app-based game. If there's a reason why you will not play that game because of something about it that doesn't make it a fit for your group, whether it's genre, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's a campaign game and you're not playing campaign games, whatever blocker there is in the sense of getting a game, don't sit there and say this one will be different. I think Feed the Kraken is excellent. I also haven't played it since it showed up, which is sad, and it's a shame. And it wasn't cheap either. And so there's this degree, and I'm not willing to get rid of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not currently willing to get rid of it because, again, there is that degree of FOMO and that degree of the idea that I do like the game and I really do want to get it tabled and played. But again, it's not currently the right fit for me. And there's a strong argument to be made that I shouldn't have actually backed it because I don't know when or if this one actually gets tabled. Try to be selective with what you get your hands on, backing or buying. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it's optimism. Maybe it was because there's crowdfunding. I was like, maybe my circumstances will change. I don't know. Whatever the reason or excuse is, Feed the Kraken hasn't been played, which just makes it a very expensive paperweight until it does. From there we go to the next reason, or the next one's going to be another small box one over here. But don't buy or back games that you aren't in love with in some shape or form. And for me, I'm choosing Abomination for this category. This one actually is currently leaving the collection. I took it off my games leaving shelf, managed to find that one. Abomination is a game I got in a trade, I believe, a long time ago. And I got it because I had temporarily had a brief interest in the game. And I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get that. I'll probably play it. Not once have I pulled it off the shelf to learn the rules. Not once have I been inclined to pull it off over other games that I do love and want to play. It's not that I don't have an interest in Abomination. I certainly do. I think it looks cool. Dice Tower has some positive things to say about it in, what's it called? The creator of South Park had some positive things to say about it in their top 10 over there. It's a game that's decently rated. It's a game that has a mode that makes it more accessible, whatever. All good things. It's fun. Plaid hat, looks great. All good things. But ultimately, it's not a game I'm in love with. It's a game I was intrigued by. And the problem is, when I'm choosing between games that I want to play, I am always going to choose the games that I'm in love with first. I'm always going to choose, whether played or unplayed. Whether it's a game that I know that I like and I want to table that, or whether it's a game that I haven't played, but at least I really want to play, as opposed to am intrigued by. Abomination has sat here since I got it, just sitting there on my unplayed game shelf. Not once have I pulled it out to in any way try to get it tabled or played, and that's just because of the fact that for me, it's a game I was interested in, but not a game that I was in love with. Unless you don't have many games at all, and even then, arguably, only get the games that really speak to you, not the ones that temporarily capture your attention. I review a lot of games on the channel, and a lot of games are good, and only a handful of them do I really say are great, which is why so often I'll be like, this is a good game, 3.5 out of 5, and then next week you see it leaving my collection. Those things are true. There's lots of good games out there, but I try to hold on to the ones that really do the most for me, as far as the experiences they deliver, and as far as how much they capture my heart and mind. We have to move this over here for number 4. Reason number 4, or reason not to get back, whatever, number 4, even if a game really does capture your heart and mind, even if it really does seem like one that you desperately want to play, even if it is one that you could table with your current game group, do not get games if they're directly competing at a player count or genre or time frame that you have too many of already. Now, specifically for this one, I'm doing this giant box full of games over here, and there's actually more of these. These are 4 of them. But Lacerda games for me are going to fall into that category. Lacerda games for me, and in fact, I'm doing a giveaway of all these games you see here and 2 others. I don't know if that video went up already or not. I'll try to time these videos out so they go up together, I guess. But there's a giveaway that I'm running on these games because of this. Because of the fact that for me, as much as I'm interested in playing these 4 Lacerdas you see over here, ultimately they are Euro games that play best with specific people in my game group at specific player counts in a way that I already have other games, both played and unplayed, that I think I will table more. For me, if I want something a little bit on the lighter side as far as the Euros go, I play Stefan Feld, I'll play Martin Wallace. There's a bunch of games that I have in my collection that are excellent medium weight Euros that give me an excellent experience that I thoroughly enjoy. And I find if I want something a bit heavier, I'm often going to go with something like a Splotter game. Roads and Boats, Antiquity, Indonesia, for me, or Food Chain Magnet, I can't believe I left that one off, or Bus. For me, Splotter games capture the heavier weight experiences, but without the rules overhead, just with the strategic overhead. And so I find they give me what a Lacerda does, but they give it to me at a easier time to jump into them. And I love those, and they're great, and I have a bunch of those. I just mentioned like 5 of those already. I have a bunch of those in my collection, so if I have those experiences, I want them. And when we go with my unplayed games, I have half the T-Series unplayed. Teotihuacan, Tiwanuku, I have a bunch of those games in the T-Series or other midweight to heavyweight Euros that I haven't even tabled yet that are crying for my attention. And that means that all these Lacerdas over here, both played and unplayed, I want them. I do. I want to play them. I want to get more experience with them. I want to enjoy the offerings that they are. I want to enjoy what they're doing. But they are directly competing at a player count and genre that I have too many of already, both played and unplayed. And take that into account when you back or buy things. The next time you're looking at a game, ask yourself realistically, will this get tabled over the other things I already have? It's not enough to like something. The question is, will it get tabled? Will it get tabled when you're looking at the games that you have in your collection? Next time you're looking at a dungeon crawler, and it's the 17th dungeon crawler you have, are you playing it over the dungeon crawlers you already love? Are you going to play it over the dungeon crawlers you have but haven't played yet? If the answer to those is no, then why are you getting that thing? There's only so many of a particular genre you can have in your collection at any given point with a realistic degree of are you going to table it. And whatever that number is, it will be different. For some people, they'll only have room for like 2 or 3 dungeon crawlers. Others will have room for 5 or 6. Others will have room for 10 or 11. But there's always going to be a cap. And if you're exceeding your cap, if you already have 5 campaign games that you know you aren't tabling, maybe don't back that next one. You don't need to. It's fine. You can pass on it. And then reason number 5 over here. And for reason number 5, we have to put these back off to the side and put these down onto the floor. Reason number 5, or excuse number 5, I should say, is don't back things that aren't worth the space they take up. Going back to dungeon crawlers, to campaign games, to that idea that there are a lot of games out there that take up a lot of space. Whether it's a giant box of Frosthaven, whether it's 4 boxes of Oathsworn, you have to decide your interest level in that genre, that game, versus the amount of space they take up. And for me, that specific aspect is going to be Horizon Zero Dawn. And no, I'm not done yet, because we have both sides of this table to bring here. Now, make no mistake, I like Horizon Zero Dawn. I played it a handful of times. I really need to properly review it, but that means I need to play it a lot more. And for me, Horizon Zero Dawn is a game that I enjoy. And when you finally do see a review from me, expect it to be positive. It will be a positive review. It will have caveats too. There's nitpicks and complaints that I have. But overall, I very much enjoy the experience that Horizon Zero Dawn brings me. I'm also skeptical that it stays, despite the fact that I enjoy it. You see, I enjoy a lot of games, but this is a little bit obnoxious as far as just how much space it takes up in my collection. Considering the amount I enjoy it versus the space it takes up, it is not insignificant. And this happens to be a bit of an extreme case. Not all games take up this many boxes, but the next time you back Marvel Zombies, sure, it will have that many boxes. Those 4 giant boxes of Oathsworn, again, that's pretty intense and insane. The box size of Frosthaven, of Isofarian Guard, of the Too Many Bones Trove Chest. There are so many experiences out there that will take up an entire Calyx Cubby, if not 2 or 3 Calyx Cubbies in your collection. And boxes are only getting bigger. We have Mosaic, a giant box. We have Assassin's Creed. We have so many incredibly large experiences. The box for Hate, and the offensiveness of some of these games not even fitting inside a Calyx Cubby. There are giant boxes out there that pull you in with what you potentially can experience, but they also require a commitment of space and often a commitment of rules overhead too, and or component overhead as you deal with those experiences. There are many games that are simply too big compared to what they're actually giving you, and sometimes they're not worth it. Other times they are. I think Oathsworn's fantastic. I think Frosthaven's fantastic. Mosaic's fantastic. But again, this is me taking the counterpoint. But just understand your own biases and preferences in the game genre and game style, and see if those games do or don't work for you as far as what they take up, what they ask from you, versus what they give you. Which brings me to my last thing. I know I said 5 reasons, but reason, this is not going off screen, there we go. My last thing is not so much a reason, but a reminder. Every time you don't buy something, every time you don't back something, there's a degree of FOMO. There's a degree of, but what if this is the game? What if this is the one that works for me? And to that I'll say a few things. The first is that there's always going to be a game. Every single year, 5,000 games come out, 500 are worth paying attention to, and at least 50 are significantly worth paying attention to. That will really compel you, really pull you in because of what you're interested in and because of the amount of hype and buzz and positive reviews that come along with them. 50 is a lot of games. You do not need every single one, and if every single year new things are coming out that call your attention, well then great. Hold off for the next one, or the next one after that, or the next one. Fall in love with the things you're actually buying or backing. Try to be as selective as possible. Do something whenever you're buying games. Something I do when I do my backing videos every single month, where I ask myself, if I could only get 1, 2, or 3 of these, which ones would I do? I find when you ask yourself that question, sometimes you have to make hard choices. Sometimes if you buy 4 games a month, whatever it is, if you buy 5 games a month, if you ask yourself, well, if I can only get 2 of those, which ones would I get? Sometimes that results in a hard choice where you actually have to decide, where you actually have to think it through, and where you sit there and you're like, no, I want all 5. And other times the choice is easy. Other times you're like, no, I'd get this one, and these 2 I probably shouldn't get because of reasons X, Y, and Z, and that helps you decide. Try asking yourself what you would get if you could only get 1 or 2 or 3 from whatever games you are planning on purchasing. And I find that you often will have an easier time knocking a few of those out when you ask yourself those hard questions. There will always be more games, and the things that are really truly good will rise to the top. Oathsworn got a second printing because people loved it. And sure, you can't get it right now if you didn't back the first time, but who cares? You have other games. You'll play it in a while. It'll stand around the same way Frosthaven and Gloomhaven and who knows what has stood around. The same way Blood Rage and Terraforming Mars and Inish and all these games that really captured people's minds and attention. Any good game, for the most part, there are infrequent exceptions. For the most part, the games that are amazing will stand the test of time. And then you can get them knowing that they have 2 years of positive reviews and rising to the top to remind you that this is a game that is truly worth your attention. Most of the time, passing on things that you don't need to get will save you time, will save you money, and will allow you to play the games you love the most in your collection. Remember this as you spend the next 3 months watching me talk about the newest games, of which many I won't keep. I will play through a bunch of games. I will give you my genuinely honest opinion about how I feel about the game, whether I like it or not, and very often I like it, and I still don't keep it. Not everything needs to be kept. Not everything needs to be played. Everyone will have the game that works perfectly for them, and you need to figure out which ones work perfectly for you. In any case, and until next time, with that dash of cold water on the FOMO, hopefully we'll see. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.